Harry is a lot like the rapper Kanye West. He says things that surprise people. Meghan does not get along with her father. She used to, but not anymore. People say it is her fault that they left the royal family. They call it Megxit because they are out of ideas. Some people don't trust her and don't like her. They feel like she is the one who wanted to leave. A funny man named Jimmy Carr walked onto a big stage. He looked at Meghan Markle's perfect life. He decided to tell the truth about what he saw. He did not say sorry for his jokes. He did not try to be nice. He was very honest. The people watching didn't just giggle. They laughed very, very loudly. They went wild. It was because they were already thinking the same thing in their heads. Jimmy just said it out loud for everyone to hear. It gets even crazier after this. You should keep watching because you don't want to miss where this goes next. Jimmy Carr is a dangerous, funny man because he stays calm. He doesn't scream or wave his arms. He talks about Meghan Markle and how she uses the word authentic all the time. That word means being your real self. She wants everyone to think she's being 100% honest. She says there is no acting or tricking. But Jimmy Carr saw something strange. He pointed out a big lie right away. Meghan says she has always been a feminist. A feminist is someone who believes women should have their own power. She says feminism is not a bad word. But then she married a prince and quit her job as an actress. She became part of a very old family where the men have the titles. Jimmy let the audience think about that. Marrying a prince to become a feminist sounds a bit silly. The room was quiet for a second and then they all laughed. It is not just the feminist part that people noticed. There is a pattern. When Meghan speaks, there is a rhythm. She always tells a sad story about herself. She talks about her pain. She says the world does not understand her. She says she has had a very hard time. Then she always uses that word, authenticity. She says she just wants to be real. She said once that she wanted to do what felt authentic, but also to be authentic. That is a funny way to talk. It is like saying, I want to eat food because I like to eat food. It sounds very smart, but it doesn't mean much. Jimmy Carr didn't even have to try hard. He just pointed at how she talks. If you have to keep telling people you are real, maybe you are not as real as you say. Harry went to court and was the first royal to do that in a long time. But Meghan has her own way of telling stories. Her stories are always about her own pain and her own struggle. Every time she talks, it goes back to her. She talks about how much she has to carry. She talks about how hard her life has been. Every person has a story and that is okay. But Meghan's stories don't always match the facts. Sometimes the details change. The story shifts around just enough. In the end, she is always the person who needs people to be extra nice to her. She never says she made a mistake. She even talked about picking up her kids from school. She made it sound like a giant, heavy job. She said people forget she is a real person when she is at the school. The people in the room were not angry. They were just tired. They were exhausted. Imagine someone who has millions of dollars and lots of help, but they still complain about things that normal moms do every day. That is the gap Jimmy found. He didn't give a long speech. He just said one thing that felt very true and everyone agreed. Jimmy said 6 words that made everyone laugh. He called her the fakest feminist alive. People laughed because it felt true. It was not a weird or mean opinion. It was what everyone was already thinking quietly. Jimmy was just the one with the microphone and nothing to lose. On one side, Meghan has a perfect, polished image. On the other side, she says, nobody truly sees me. Jimmy stood in the middle and showed everyone both sides. It was funny because it was so obvious to everyone. Meghan says she loves her privacy. Privacy means wanting people to leave you alone. Harry says he wants privacy too. They told everyone they wanted to step back and live a quiet life. They wanted to protect their kids from the loud cameras. That was the whole reason they left England. But then they went on a big TV show with Oprah. It was 2 hours long and everyone watched it. That does not sound very private. You would think the Oprah show was enough, but it wasn't. Then they made a deal with Spotify for a podcast. Then they made a deal with Netflix for a big movie about their lives. They showed their house and their kids to millions of people. They walked on red carpets and did more interviews. Jimmy Carr said it was like saying you hate attention while you are looking at yourself in every window you walk past. Every project they did was about wanting peace and quiet, but they were doing it on a big stage. Harry and Meghan said they wanted to be financially independent. They said they wanted to make £50 billion. That is a huge amount of money, but they were making that money by selling their secrets to Netflix and Spotify. That is not really being free. It is just working for a different boss. The math just didn't work. They said they needed space, but their schedule was full of big, public events. The timing was very interesting. First came Oprah, that made people want more, then came Spotify, then came Netflix. It looked like a big plan. Every time they said they were finally being authentic. Jimmy saw through it. He said they claimed to want out of the light, but they do everything to stay in the middle of it. They just changed the logo on the wall. The joke was funny because it was accurate. The privacy talk and the Netflix show cannot both be true at the same time. Jimmy Carr just pointed his finger at the truth and let the people decide. They wanted to be free and go their own way. But when you leave one place, you have to find a new home. Their travel story was funny. Jimmy Carr explained it simply. They said they would live in the UK and Canada. It was going to be a fresh start. But Jimmy said it looked like they were just moving around and spending other people's money. Then the internet started talking. When three big countries all say they don't want you, that is a problem. The UK said no. They had moved on. And Canada said no way. They didn't want to pay for Harry and Meghan's guards. That left the United States. But America didn't really want them either. Nobody asked for them to come. Three countries said no thank you. It was very blunt. Jimmy had a funny line. He said finders, weepers, losers, keepers. It meant nobody wanted to be stuck with them. Everyone was pointing at someone else. The UK said they were gone. America said they didn't belong. Canada said they were just passing by. Through all of this, Harry and Meghan kept saying they were writing their own story. That is hard to believe when no country wants to help them. Harry left the royal family because he hated the rules. He said it was too stiff and he had to ask for permission for everything. He wanted to make his own choices. He wanted to be the boss of his own life. But then he became Meghan's sidekick on Netflix. Jimmy's joke was very sharp. Jimmy said he has never asked his grandma for permission to do anything. But Harry had to ask his nan, then his granddad, then his dad. Harry escaped that, but he just found a new boss. He swapped one castle for a house in California. Instead of the palace, he has a house with a ring light and a camera. He didn't really get free. He just changed who was managing his image. Jimmy said he didn't escape control, he just changed castles. Kelly Osbourne had the same idea. She said Harry was a real prince, but now he just complains. He talks about how hard his life is. Kelly said that everyone's life is hard, everyone has problems, but Harry is the only one who demands that the whole world stops to feel sorry for him. Harry has always had someone running things. First it was the palace structure, then it was a new group in America. The man who said he wanted to be free is now publicly managed by a movie company. Jimmy wasn't being mean, he was just saying what he saw. Harry stepped out of one system and walked right into a new one. The fancy lights in Montecito are just like the fancy lights in Buckingham Palace. It is the same thing in a different place. Before the royal drama started, there was a pattern. Meghan's own family did not come to her wedding. Her father, her mother, her brother, none of them were there. These are the people who knew her first. None of them were at her big day. The world saw this and had many questions. Her father was sick, but she didn't seem to talk to him. Commentary said her dad was sick and she ignored him. Then the same thing happened with the royal family. They didn't just leave quietly. They made it a big fight in movies and books. The people who were close to her before the fame always ended up on the outside. A pattern is when something happens more than once. Close relationships start strong, but then they end quietly. The people are replaced. This observation was very simple. You just look at the family situation and then look at what came next. The shape of the story tells you everything without anyone needing to add more on top. Jimmy Carr had a sharp point about Invictus. These are the games Harry built for hurt soldiers, but Jimmy pointed out a secret. The word Invictus means not a victim. Think about that. Harry has built his whole public identity around being a victim. He tells everyone how much he has suffered, but he named his favorite thing not a victim. Jimmy put those two things together. Harry's public life is all about his pain. He talks about it in books and movies. He invites the world to see his sadness. People aren't upset about talking about feelings. They are just tired of how much he talks about himself. Kelly Osbourne said it perfectly. Everybody's life is hard. Harry grew up with more money and help than anyone else. Even if his life was hard, he had everything he needed. But he acts like he is the only person who has ever been sad. It starts to feel like a brand. Every time he needs to sell a book, he talks about his pain again. People who once felt sorry for him are now asking when he will move forward instead of looking back. Jimmy Carr's energy changed when he talked about Prince William. He told a story about being at Buckingham Palace. He felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Prince William. William said Mr. Carr in a very nice way. He was not mean or sarcastic. He was warm and kind. Jimmy really liked William. You could tell by the way he smiled. This made the jokes about Harry and Meghan feel even stronger. Jimmy didn't hate the family. He just saw a big difference between the two brothers. He saw William as a solid man who does his job without making a movie about it. William doesn't make podcasts about how hard his life is. He just does the work. He doesn't perform for the cameras. One brother turns his life into a show to make money. The other brother just shows up and helps. The audience felt this too. They got quiet because they respected William. William deals with the same pressure, but he doesn't complain to the whole world about it. That small hello from William said a lot about the difference between the brothers. Jimmy Carr didn't have a grudge. He just had a sharp eye. He saw two people who said they wanted to escape the spotlight, but they never actually left. They talk about being authentic, but they control everything. They changed the locks and erased their old friends. They said they wanted privacy, but then they signed huge deals to make sure their story was on every screen on the planet. Most people have hard lives without getting a check for it. Harry and Meghan have the most resources, but they complain the loudest. They could go and live a quiet life right now if they wanted to, but they don't. Jimmy Carr didn't create the lie. He just held up a mirror. He showed everyone the contradiction. The mockery was funny because it was accurate. They moved countries for privacy, but then they kept talking to the news. It is not an accident. It is the plan. The circus is not going to stop. Harry and Meghan don't actually want it to stop. Jimmy Carr just said what the whole world was already thinking. People are tired of the same old story. Everyone wants them to move on.